So what we're going to be talking about is why you keep playing the same licks over and over in your guitar solos. This is something that I hear a lot from people. I just feel like I'm playing the same thing over and over, and it's boring and it's not interesting. And believe it or not, there's some very, very simple things that you can do, dare I say, without any additional practice. Notice I didn't say without any practice, without any additional practice or additional time spent, that can get you out of feeling like you're playing the same things over and over. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First of all, where I like to start with this issue of playing the same things over and over is with rhythm. Okay, so most people do not even practice rhythm at all, at least when it comes to their soloing. Okay, they might practice rhythm guitar, they might practice power chords, they might practice all kinds of stuff, but every time you play any phrase in a solo, there has to be a rhythm to it. And most of the time when I hear people who sound like they're playing the same thing over and over, it's not necessarily that they're playing the same notes over and over, it's that they're playing the same rhythms over and over. So there's a few different ways that you can address this. First of all, I think it's important to study rhythm as a thing in and of itself, just like how we study different music theory concepts, so learning the fretboard, memorizing your scales, whatever it is, memorizing different rhythms and being able to specifically use those rhythms in your solos is an important thing. And if you're interested in doing that, check out my video called The Ultimate Guitar Rhythm Exercise. But I want to give you a more sort of simple, intuitive approach that you can immediately apply to your playing. So let's go ahead and throw on a track, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually solo over this track, but we're only going to use 2 notes, okay? And, you know, eventually you can add maybe a third note, but the idea is I want to use only a couple of notes, and I want to figure out as many possible different rhythms that I can play those few amount of notes with. So we're going to be playing over a track. This is going to be kind of like a D blues track, D major blues. And I'm just going to, for right now, actually play the D minor pentatonic scale. We'll get into stuff with notes, but we're going to focus on rhythm right now. So if I play over this, I'll pick these 2 notes. Well, how many different rhythms can I create and just mix it up with just those 2 notes? So now I'm kind of going slower rhythms. I was playing some faster triplet rhythms. What about like some 16th notes? And I can add in some slides too. So how many different ways can I just play those 2 notes? The same rhythm, but different lengths, maybe. Sometimes I was playing that really, really long over and over. Short and long phrases. There's a new rhythm. That's a very interesting 16th note type of rhythm there. So there's a very sort of exaggerated example of something that I like to practice, which is I'm just going to take 1 maybe note or 2 notes and see how many different ways can I play different rhythms with those notes, okay? If you can't make 2 notes sound pretty interesting, then you're not really going to be able to just add more notes and make it sound more interesting, okay? So we want to be able to actually do more with less. The second reason why you're playing the same licks over and over is because when you are playing the entire scale and you're not just limiting yourself to a couple of notes, well, you're actually doing what I just said. You're always playing the entire scale. So I'll always hear people, like, if they're playing that position, the minor pentatonic scale, they go, okay, well, I have all those notes. I got to use all of them all the time. Okay? No, you don't have to use all of the notes all the time. No more than I have to use all of the words that are in the English language all the time when I'm having a conversation with somebody or anything of that nature. I have to use all of the colors that exist if I'm making a painting or something like that. So it actually sounds more boring when you're playing all the notes in the scale all the time, because there's actually less combinations that you can make of all of the notes in a scale. So somebody who's more experienced, okay, they know how to break up a scale, a large pattern, and they know how to break it up into like 100 different chunks. So let's go over like a little example of that visually. So for example, here, okay, if I had this scale diagram, well, I'm not going to play all of the notes. I might just pick these three notes here, like this A, this D, and this F. I might just say, I'm going to play those for a while. That's kind of like a Jimmy Page-esque type of lick. It just happens to be. And then I might say, oh, I'm going to play this D and this G and this G here or something. And then I might say, oh, now I want a string skip. I'm going to play this F and this D and this A here or something. So now all of a sudden, I'm playing some stuff, actually even just an idea like that, those three notes. You're not going to hear too many people playing something like that. You're going to hear them playing basically this all the time. They're just going to be running the entire scale all the time. When you're running the entire scale all the time, I know when I'm listening to you that you're going to continue running the entire scale all the time. So it kind of starts to get boring. So the whole point is that you need to think about breaking your scale patterns up into all kinds of different chunks, okay? And by the way, that's why the first thing I was talking about also really helps. If I go, I'm just going to pick two notes, right? How many different combinations do you think you can break just that one silly little pentatonic scale into? And that's not including other scales and all the positions on the guitar and stuff like that. So practice breaking your scale up into as many different chunks as possible, including notes that are not next to each other. That's the last thing I want to say about the scale, is that all the time, whenever I hear people who sound like they're playing the same licks over and over, they're always playing the scale stepwise. They're always playing one note in the scale to the next note that comes up in the scale, to the next note that comes up in the scale, to the next note that comes up in the scale. And then when they solo, it sounds something like this. That whole entire thing is just stepwise. There was not one single interval skip in that whole entire thing. Reason number 3 that you sound like you're playing the same licks over and over is because you keep playing the same volume over and over, okay? And I probably, even in the little examples I've given right here, I've probably been a little bit guilty of this, but I almost never hear people complain about this idea of playing the same licks over and over. They're never playing specifically with a quiet volume, okay? They're always playing maybe medium to medium loud volume, okay? So just alone, even if I forgot about everything I just talked about, let's say all I did is run the pentatonic scale and it's always stepwise and it's all this quote unquote boring and predictable stuff that I was just talking about. Well, guess what? If I change the dynamics and change the volume, it's automatically going to sound more interesting than if I'm running a pentatonic scale with the same volume the whole entire time, because it is something that is changing and something that I can't predict. Let's try that actually. So I'm going to deliberately first play kind of boring note stuff and rhythm stuff, but I'm going to add more interesting dynamics and tell me if you think that it sounds better. I think it sounded way more interesting because, like, wait a second, you couldn't tell what notes were going to be louder, what notes were going to be softer. So that's one thing that you should practice is, even if you change nothing else, try practicing playing at different volumes. And notice how there I can continuously change the volume. It goes from loud to soft to loud to soft. But you can expand this in many different ways. You can start off your solo all quiet and gradually get louder and louder, like something like this. Right, so in the beginning, almost everything was kind of quiet, but then at some point I made a decision, okay, I want to start getting louder, because also that dynamic kind of controls the energy of what's going on as well. It feels like more intense when I play louder. And most people are just constantly playing loud because they have this idea in their head that playing guitar is hard and that they have to pick hard and they have to try hard. So you end up playing really loud, whereas you have to be very effortless to play quiet. When I do that, I'm barely moving this pick at all. I have to be super duper chill and relaxed. I can't be freaking out and nervous over my solo in order to play with good dynamics. So reason number 4 that you're playing the same licks over and over is that you're playing the same phrasing over and over. So, phrasing, to me, the most basic form, it's kind of like related to step 1. It's a form of rhythm. And really, it's how long are you playing for, and how short are you playing for, and how much space are you leaving, okay? So, to put it simply, if I can predict nothing else, I don't want to be able to predict when you're going to play and when you're not going to play. And if I can predict when you're going to play, then it's going to be more boring, okay? So another thing is that, especially when it comes to like pentatonic, people always end like on the same note. They'll always end their phrase, like they'll play all this stuff, and then they'll end on the root, which in this case is the 12th fret of the 4th string. They're always constantly ending there. They never end on a different note. They never end on a different part of the beat. They never have a different length of phrase. So I've talked about phrasing before, but what I want you to do in this case is practice playing some short phrases, leaving a lot of space, and long phrases, leaving a lot of space, and mixing those two up. And then just make sure, if nothing else, the only thing I want you to think about with the notes is just don't end on the freaking root. Don't end on the same note. So just, you can pre-plan out a different note if you want. Oh, I'm going to end on this note. Okay, I'm going to play a phrase. I'm going to end on this note. I'm going to play a different phrase. I'm going to end on this note. Okay, so let's try some of that. So short phrases and a lot of space. Did you know what I was going to play? Oh, how long am I gonna hold that note for? Do you ever just play one note in your solo, or do you think, oh, I gotta play way more notes? Now I'll play some longer phrases. The idea, like when I was doing that, I was trying to make it so even I couldn't predict when I was going to play. Here's a good rule of thumb. When you want to play, you get the urge to play, don't. Wait till the next time you get the urge to play. Then you'll start being a lot more predictable. Again, do I want to constantly play like this all the time? No, but all of these different things that we're talking about in this video, when you combine them all together naturally and fluidly, that's what's going to start making you sound a lot better. Reason number 5 that you're always playing the same licks is because you're always playing in one position, okay? So I find that even people who know all of their positions, they know all of it, and they've learned the fretboard and all this stuff, they're still going back to the same thing over and over. So you have to practice deliberately using a different position. So a different position of the D minor pentatonic scale, maybe here. Do you ever use that one? Or are you always using position number 1? So make sure that you're using some different positions in your playing. So even you can create the illusion you're using tons of positions if you just pick 2 that are like not next to each other. For example, the one that we just started off with, and then this one I believe is the 4th position of the pentatonic scale. There's one in between that we're kind of skipping over, right? But if I just use 2 positions, oh look, it looks like I'm going here and I'm going here, and I'm moving over the fretboard a lot. Also, one final thing I'll say about that is playing in the higher frets. So sometimes people, they think, oh, well, if I play past the 12th fret, it's the same thing. Yeah, it is kind of the same thing, but it's not exactly the same thing. So you should definitely practice playing in the upper register. I feel like a lot of people I hear, they're always in this middle register of the guitar. But actually, so let's try that. I'm going to take this same pentatonic position, but I'm going to play it all the way up here. Okay, so this really, really high register, a lot of times that's going to be really unexpected if I go from here and then jump all the way up here. So let's see what that sounds like. Just 2 different positions, but actually using them. there it's like, oh, are you going to go to a high note? Are you going to go to a low note? Just that kind of creates the illusion. But you want to make sure you use all the positions, know all the positions rather, and then actually use them, okay? Don't just go right back to using the same first position, okay? The sixth reason that you sound like you're playing the same licks over and over is that you don't practice soloing on one string. So I talk about all the time knowing the notes on one string and knowing whatever key you're gonna play in one string, but then a lot of times people learn that and they go, okay, and then they forget about it. Well, you need to actually do it in your playing sometimes. So if I learn the D minor pentatonic scale on one string, for example, it'll look like this. Okay, so it's going to be up to you, obviously, to go ahead and do that on your own, but you should know it on all strings and then actually practice soloing on just one string. You're going to notice it's going to force you to play in a completely different way. And one thing I want to mention that you need to be careful about when you're doing this is something I talked about before, playing stepwise all the time, okay? Because you're going to be tempted to, oh, well, I know these two notes are right next to each other. Well, I'm just going to play those notes. No, the whole point is that you can do really cool things like sliding. And that specifically, just that sliding sound, that's something you do not hear a lot of novice and intermediate players doing. You don't hear them sliding along one string. And on top of that, of course, this ties back to the last thing that we talked about, which is that learning on one string at a time is gonna tie together all those different positions that you know of the pentatonic scale. And you can apply all the different things that we talked about before. So you can say, oh, I'm gonna pick two notes, like for example, this A and this G. What if I only solo with those two notes? I'm gonna end up playing a lot of stuff that I don't normally play. And that is really how you know you're getting better at soloing, guys. Are you playing stuff that you wouldn't normally play? Or you wouldn't have played before? If you start playing things you wouldn't have played before, that's how you know you're getting better. So now I can mix that in with all the other stuff I know. See those single string slides? Man, I love those things. So if you want to learn how to master the guitar fretboard so that you can know how to do all this stuff that I've been talking about in this video in all 12 keys, all over the entire guitar neck effortlessly, then make sure you head on over to Jamsville.com right now and pick up the Jamsville GPS Fretboard Fundamentals course. Also, make sure you support the channel. Go ahead and check out the merch store and pick yourself up an awesome Jamsville t-shirt just like this one. It helps support the channel, and you get a freaking awesome t-shirt that looks super cool, it's super comfortable, and fits great. Also, make sure you check out my new song, which you're listening to in the background right now. It's called My Divine. It's available on all the major streaming services. Check the link in the description below for that. Make sure you drop a like on the video, hit subscribe, and subscribe to the channel. We gotta get those subscriptions up, those likes up. It all helps, and it all doesn't cost you anything to support the channel. All right, everybody, until next time, listen, learn, and jam.